Welcome back to another UNC Tar Heels football podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're checking us out on our fast-growing YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of football recruiting and jack of all trades, Miss Deana King, and of course a budding jack of all trades, Mr. Brandon Peay. Guys, what's going on? We're talking football, even in the middle of basketball season. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on, so you guys kind of excited to talk about Mack Brown and his guys?
Yeah, football never stops down here.
No, it never stops at THI because Deana and I probably talk 355 days out of the year, Deana. And I'd be willing to bet you that football in some capacity comes up all 355 of those days. I give her a break for about 7 days when I don't call her.
And it could be multiple times a day too.
Yeah, and it could be at 12 o'clock at night. It's
just, with Coach Brown coming back, I mean, there's just a lot of positive stuff going on. And so we always have to be on watch about everything. So,
and there's a lot to discuss right now. They're a few weeks away from spring practice starting. The spring game is April 9th. So they're going to dive in early March, and they're going to cruise right into the April 9th spring game, although a couple of weeks earlier than a year ago. But in the last month, Jay Bateman gone, Chizik and Charlton Warren in, okay? They've also brought in another transfer from the portal, Spencer Rolland, an offensive lineman from Harvard. And recruiting has changed a little bit. The recruiting you asked Mack last week about the footprint data, and he said, no, it hadn't changed, but so far the evidence suggests that it has changed a little bit more Florida oriented, a little heavy on Alabama, heavier than before, although Phoenix City has a lot of kids that everybody wants. So of course they're going to hang out there some. So we're just going to kind of have a discussion about some of the things that have been going on as the Tar Heels gear themselves toward spring. And also the big news this week, Vohasek taking advantage of the NCAA giving everybody back the 2020 football season. So he's back at Carolina. This will be his fourth year there in the program, be his sixth year in college. But people should remember, he lost a year in junior college because of the injury. So he was really, and he wasn't able to lift weights his first year at Carolina. So in a way, it's kind of good that he gets this year because he gets to kind of fulfill what would be a normal college experience for guys. So what is that? Let me start with you, Brandon. In the last month, obviously Chizik being hired is the biggest news, but what's the most interesting thing that's come out of the program in the last month to you?
So for me, the biggest news to come out of the program in the last month is the addition of Spencer Rolland. I think he's the perfect fit for what the Tar Heels like to do along the offensive line. Back when we watched, when we used to cover the games, you actually pointed this out to me that the Tar Heels, they like to pull their tackles on running plays. And a lot of the times the tackles, they weren't light of foot enough to, get to the blocking time, and it resulted in a lot of tackles for loss. And when you watch Spencer Rolland's highlights, like the first thing that stood out to me was his measurables. He looks like 6'6", around 290 pounds, which is relatively light for an offensive tackle at the Power 5 level. But I think like what he lacks in size, he'll make up for with athleticism. So I think his ability to be athletic and run around and pull, I think that'll really help the Tar Heels out.
And they'll put some weight on him too. He was at 290 at Harvard because he didn't have to be any bigger than 290 at Harvard. He wants to play in the NFL, so he's going to have to add weight. So this is a great opportunity for him to have a full season, a full cycle of adding that weight and seeing where his body is with that weight. So for him, he's going to get a lot of information before heading off to a training camp somewhere, wherever he goes in a year and 4 months from now. It's going to be a great opportunity for him to really see exactly where he is as a player, just in terms of handling the extra weight, the extra muscle, the extra everything.
Yeah, and another thing is when the Tar Heels made him available to the media, one of the things he said is one of the reasons he chose UNC is because he was interested in learning technique from Stacey Searles. So when you have an athletic kid who's obviously smart, who's interested in learning technique, that's just going to be a recipe for success in my opinion.
Well, Deana, you and I have had many conversations about Stacey Searles for a couple of years, and certainly the last 7 months, because he's been the target of a lot of Carolina fans that don't fully understand. There is a difference between a guy who can run block and a guy who could pass block. You want to get someone who could do both, but there is a fine line between some of those offensive linemen who can grind forward. They can cross block. Some could pull a little bit. They could certainly block the guy in front of them, but pass blocking is where the better athletes come into play. And the better pass protection teams, the ones with the 4-star kids in the offensive line, the ones that played other sports. Carolina's offensive line is changing in that sense, where they're bringing in more kids that play basketball, footwork type kids, better athletes. They should improve the pass blocking. That brings me to Stacey Searles. His track record, which you talk about all the time, is outstanding. He's got 2 guys that are playing in the Super Bowl, I believe, that he coached in college. So that's the stuff that Spencer Rolland looked at and said, yeah, I do. I want to wear Carolina blue.
You mentioned when Coach Brown and the staff got here, they had a lot of 3-star linemen that just basically was football players. Now you look in the 3rd and the 4th class who they're recruiting lineman wise. Zach Rice, he's played basketball. Eli Sutton played basketball. Diego Pounds played basketball. And you know what kind of athlete Diego was, jumping off the diving board, doing flips and stuff. So being a post player in basketball, you got to have great footwork, and that correlates to having good footwork on the football field. So, but yeah, better prospects coming in, and look for that to improve this year.
And it's not just the footwork. Brandon, who played on the offensive line in high school, can attest to this. You have to have really good balance to pass block, because it's not the aggression. It's not the grind mentality that when people say that guy's a road grader. Well, that's because he's a guard who can eat people up at the line of scrimmage. But when you're pass blocking, it's a totally different skill set. And having footwork is fantastic, but you have to have balance. You have to be able to see where stuff is coming. You have to be able to react. There's a lot of there are more and more athletes rushing the passer now in college football than 20 years ago. So you have to have great balance, good footwork. But if the balance isn't there, the footwork isn't going to help you.
Yeah, totally agree. Very similar to playing defense in basketball. When you're out there on that island, very similar. You got to move your feet.
You don't get your butt as low, but there is an element of that to it as well. If you watch great basketball, watch the Super Bowl. I don't know a whole lot about either offensive line. I've heard that the Bengals offensive line not great. It's just Joe Burrow doing his thing. But watch the offensive line. Whatever team protects their quarterback better, watch how the offensive linemen are. Watch the balance those guys when they're in pass protection. They're alert. They're peripheral. And you can't be peripheral if you're not balanced, and you can't react if you don't have good footwork. So that's the thing about Stacey Searles. I think a lot of people need to understand, and that the offensive line pass protection should improve in this program over time. And that's not to denigrate the guys that were there before. Their run blocking was fantastic. They were graded out very, very well in that sense. And they set a lot of high watermarks there for the run game, but they do need to improve the pass protection. Okay, what about Vohasek coming back, guys? That we were told that there was going to be a surprise player. Jeremy said, "Hey, we're going to have a surprise guy sometime Monday," and nobody knew. Some of us in the media were having kind of fun trying to guess who it was, and we found out it was Vohasek. And I sent Jeremy a text. I said, "No, whoever had Ray Vohasek on that one, raise their hand," and nobody's got their hand up. I think that's a fantastic pickup. It's like getting a really experienced guy from the portal in a way, and they bring him back. And for him, he wants to come back to become an NFL player. He wants to come back to get a little bit better. He played hurt last year, which we didn't know about. He said it affected his quickness, affected how lateral he could play. And he wasn't as explosive. And one of his strengths is being explosive at the snap, the point of contact, being a disruptor at the point of contact. And if he was not as quick off the ball last year as he would have been had he been healthy, then no wonder maybe he didn't have as much success at the point of attack as he will this coming fall, assuming he's 100% healthy. Now, he's going to miss the spring. He's had surgery a couple weeks ago, so he's on the mend, but he said he's going to be 100% ready for the summer workout. So he'll be rolling before fall camp starts at the 1st of August. What do you guys think about Vohasek coming back?
So I think go ahead, Deana. Go ahead.
I think it's huge. Like you said, we had to wait all weekend and all kind of scenarios. People DM what's going to happen, or whatever. But I think the defensive front room, with Ray coming back and with Miles there, gives them a lot of depth there at the tackles. Because you're gonna have a Travis Shaw coming in. You got KBJ if he can stay healthy. I look for Keyshawn Silver to be a lot more, be on the field a lot more this year. So having Ray there, somebody that's battle tested and a veteran to help some of these younger guys is going to be a plus. And Andrew, you've always said, some of these guys, if they can give you 30 good snaps and somebody else can give them about 30 more extra, same type of snaps. Yeah. That's going to make the team better. So they know they can depend on Ray to give them some positive snaps. So I think it was huge, and it's a really big plus because they're going to, he gave us a little bit of insight on what Coach Chizik's going to scheme wise. So a 4 down lineman front. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Coach Chizik dials up this year.
Brandon, one of the things by going to a 4-man front, so people were concerned when they first heard about Vohasek, like, well, I want Travis Shaw to get on the field. I want to see KBJ. I want to see Keyshawn. They're going to a 4-man front. There's going to be a lot of snaps to divvy up between those guys up front. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with a few other guys now that we're going to see some bodies change. Some of the guys that were in that hybrid in between role, some are either going to go straight outside linebacker, some are going to go maybe with a hand on the ground on the edge. It'll be interesting to see in the spring what happens with some of those guys, but there are a lot more snaps to divvy up on the front line. So getting Vohasek back, I think, is a huge pickup in that respect.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest area where Vohasek will improve the defensive line room is off the field. Is because, when you're playing football at the college level or even high school, you want more juniors, you want more seniors, you want older guys in the trenches. So, just to have another guy that can come in and bring the average age of that room up, I think is going to be huge. And we're talking about a guy who's supposed to be preparing for an NFL career. So he knows the work ethic. He knows what it takes. He has that level of maturity. We know the difference between a guy that's in his last year of college versus a guy that's in his first and second year of college. So them just watching him every day put the work in, even through the rehab, is going to rub. I believe it will rub off positivity on the young. And I think that'll really help their development. Him coming back.
And staying on that, you guys both know that I talk to you all the time about watching kids grow and mature in college. It's an enormous part. Maturing as a dude affects how you mature and grow as a player almost all the time. And one of the things that really jumped out at me that I took from the interview with Ray on Monday was he's just better. He was more relaxed. It was the best interview he's done with us by far. And he was kind of open about some stuff and sharing some things. He kind of sounded a little bit like a leader. Not saying that he wasn't before, but he just kind of played the part a lot more. And that kind of speaks to what you're talking to, Brandon. Every room has to have a voice. There has to be a voice that's a little bit louder than everybody else. And I think that we saw the first stage of him being the loudest voice in that room. He might not be the best player in that room. He certainly might not be the most talented in that room, but he's effective. He's going to get on the field. He's a guy that a lot of people think has a chance to earn money at the next level. So he's going to command respect. And therefore his voice, his loud voice in that room will be heard by the other guys.
Well, he's earned a lot of respect, by coming back in. Let's face it, he stated that the last couple of games left a bad taste in his mouth, losing to State the way they did. And then the South Carolina game. So I think he wants to make that up to the Tar Heel fans.
Well, let's go to that four-man front. We didn't get a whole lot from Gene Chizik when we talked to him, but he was kind of early in the process. Deana, you and I, and Brandon, we talked too, that we kind of figured, okay, things are going to change. I was telling people last fall when people were on the ledge and they were getting ready to just, swan dive into a volcano, basically, because they couldn't handle with what was going on in the field. And I kept saying, Mac's going to learn a lot. This might be one of those seasons where we take a couple steps backward, take a lot more steps forward in the future, because remember, Mac was out. And when he came back in, he jumped in and said, okay, I'm going with all the new gadgets. The new gadget schemes. I got this air raid guy, this dude that's racking up yards all over the place. I want him. Kids want to play in that stuff. Well, and here's sort of the defensive version of air raid with Jay Bateman. And like all of us said, boy, if he can do that with Army's guys, imagine what he can do with ACC guys. Well, it didn't work out. And we've discussed why it didn't work out. No need to go into that. However, I think among the things that Mac learned last year as he's reacclimating himself to the sport as a coach and running a program is I think he now knows what he wants on defense. He knows what he doesn't want, and it helps him know what he wants. And I think what he wants is what we talked about a lot, Deana, and Jacob and I talked about it a lot this last season as well. Simplify the defense, line up and win your battles. And Brandon, you and I've talked about this just in talking football in general. It's about winning your battles. It's 11 on 11. It's not 11 on 13. It's not 11 on 9. You don't have to super scheme to kind of make up for the fact that you have fewer guys in the field or anything like that. It's 11 on 11. Win your battles and get to the ball. That's what it's all about. And one of the specialties with Gene Chizik is that he simplifies things. He doesn't want to overload guys with stuff. And I think at times they were overloaded. There's a reason that those guys were not even looking at the ball sometimes when it was snapped last year because they were overwhelmed with too much stuff in pre-snap. They're going to eliminate a lot of that. And Brandon, you and I were talking, driving down to Clemson for the basketball game about a video of Gene Chizik's that you watched from a few years ago. Why don't you share everybody what you saw and what your thoughts about that were? Because I think that's what he's bringing back to Chapel Hill. He did it the first time. I think he's bringing that same thinking back to Chapel Hill.
Yeah, so I was just watching a video on YouTube of Gene Chizik at a coaching seminar. It's like an old video. And one of the main messages he was getting to the coaches that were at the seminar was, if you have a young guy that's a stud and he's not playing, and the head coach asks you, why is this guy not playing? He doesn't understand should not be the reason he's not playing. Him not understanding the playbook or him not understanding this or technique should not be the reason he's not playing. He says every coach should simplify their message so the best players, the most physically gifted players can get out there and play and not be constantly thinking. They can be, if you have a 4-3 guy, you want him running a 4-3. You don't want him thinking. Now he's running a 5-3,
And Deana, staying on that, I'm a big believer in like football 101, basketball 101. You got to be able to do the simple stuff first. It's this typical, and I hate to be overly cliched here. You got to crawl before you walk. You got to walk before you can run. And they were so bad at the simple stuff at times last year that to me, it made no sense that they would try to out scheme the crap out of people. And that's what I love about simplicity. Simplicity sometimes may not be sexy, but simplicity can be very effective. And I think I cannot wait to go to practice this spring and look at the simplicity and look out there and not see a 265-pound hybrid guy trying to cover a running back out of the backfield. Things that just make a little bit more sense. And I don't mean to be negative about Jay Bateman's defense. I think it's a wonderful defense at certain levels. I just think in 3 years we saw that the over scheming and some of the hybrid stuff didn't work at the ACC level. So your thoughts on the simplification of the defense and how it will play to the strengths when you've got a lot of 4-star guys over there?
Well, you got some outstanding cornerbacks. I'll start there. You got Grimes and Duck back there on the corners. They're athletes. Let them play. Let them take care of their man. I think it's just was a lot of mix up back there on responsibilities. How many times did you see the secondary get crossed up on coverage and everything? Some basic stuff. You stay on your guy and everything. So I'm anxious to see, Jacarius, what he is like when he comes back from his injury, where Coach Chizik is going to put him. I'm curious about Rah. We've talked about Rah so many times that, we all think that he has a great shot at being a safety. I think he has the perfect size, and everybody knows the speed that Rah has, but a lot of people don't know that booger can pop. He wants to hit, and that's why he's excelled on special teams. When you see number 45 out there, who is number 45? That's Rah. So I'm just anxious to see where people are placed at, I guess, in the new scheme.
Brandon, if you haven't figured it out yet, by the way, there are 2 staffers at THI that have rah crushes. Deana's got a rah football crush, and Kevin Roy has a rah football crush that is off the charts. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I also believe Carolina fans, I feel like the fans will like the mentality that Gene Chizik brings of let's get the best guys out there. Because, last year I heard a lot of complaining from the fans that, like, why is this guy not playing? And why is this guy not playing? And you have to say, well, maybe they're not ready. But with Gene Chizik's mentality is like them not being ready won't be an excuse anymore. So I think we'll see a lot more of the talented players get out there, and we'll be able to see some more players play.
By the way, quick comment about what you said, Deana. A lot of people were critical of Dre Bly and his coaching. And I mean, honestly, I talked to a lot of people like, thinking that maybe Max should get rid of Bly. He can't coach. He can recruit, but he can't coach and all that stuff. And I just kept going back to the same thing. I don't think we could judge any of the assistant coaches last year because of the scheme. I think the scheme had a cascading effect in a negative way about what we saw defensively. You hit on it a little bit with the coverage stuff. We're going to find out if Dre Bly can coach. We're going to find out if the rude boys are rude under Dre Bly, because I think with the way that the scheme is going to play, the way they're going to attack, the way they're going to call things is going to be to accentuate the strengths on that side of the ball. And that goes to what you're just saying, Brandon. Get the best, most talented guys out there. Let them play. Florida A&M, they're going to play 80 guys in that game, man. They're going to get a bunch of dudes out there, let them fly around, get a taste, and go from there. And if you're getting the job done, you're going to be on the field.
Well, during Matt 1.0, did he ever have to worry about, his cornerbacks when he had Dre and Robert Williams, who I think are the best cornerback combo they've ever had?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is huge. It's going to, I think, Tony and Storm, if they stay healthy, they've got a great chance to have an outstanding year and just turn them loose, turn them loose, turn the rude boys loose, and let them use their athletic ability.
And I also think with Charlton Warren handling safeties and his other responsibilities in the defense, I think that is going to play into this as well. I think that they had made a significant upgrade on that side of the ball. Another area that a lot of people believe could be an upgrade too, and Billy Hyde did an excellent job, as they call it general manager now. A couple of years ago, it was just called director of player personnel, I guess. Now it's called general manager. I'm thinking, what is it, the NFL? But the general assistant athletic director / general manager, basically director of player personnel. Patrick Suddes comes over from Georgia Tech. He actually has spent time with Mac at Texas. He spent a lot of time with Nick Saban. He was with Saban at LSU, with the Dolphins, and then at Alabama. He recently spent time at Georgia Tech. And let's understand this here. And I do think Georgia Tech should be better in football and basketball than they have been. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But the fact that Georgia Tech has only twice finished in the top 25 in the Rivals recruiting rankings, and one of them was here recently with Patrick Suddes playing in a very key role in that process, tells me what this guy can do. And I think, Deana, we're seeing a small snippet of his connections with where recruiting is going right now. Why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, I've done a piece. Hopefully it'll be run. It may run before we post this podcast, but as of February 9th, North Carolina has given out 74 offers in the 2023 class. And as of today, Georgia they've offered 16 Georgia kids. 15 North Carolina kids, and then you got Florida and Alabama and Virginia all in that top 5. But so I think with the presence of Charlton Warren and Gene Chizik being both coaches in, the Georgia, because Auburn with Chizik, Auburn recruited Georgia, Atlanta a lot. Warren being a coach at Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida, he recruits that southeastern area. So, the first few weeks on the job, I've seen a lot of offers. I mean, like I said, they've given out 74, and I don't even know in the class of 21 if they even got it to 70 some offers for the prior class. So
well, they had a very small net to begin with.
They
remember, originally they were thinking 10 to 14 kids because they had to figure out roster management stuff. Let me ask you about the recruiting footprint, because you talked to Mac last week and he reiterated Atlanta to Washington, D.C. But last time I checked, Florida is south of Atlanta. Alabama is west of Atlanta. So is it fair to say it's, Florida for some guys because there's so many, Eastern Alabama and then
I'm
DC?
a country music person, so the Florida-Georgia line. So I'm going to say that northern part of Florida is probably still in that range too. But Mac said they were going to stay in that blueprint, but with the data and stuff I've looked up, of course, Alabama's got a lot of kids. They just brought in Carter Harrell, who plays in the powerhouse in Alabama. And then you go to, he said they will go outside for elite kids, especially if there's kids that are not in the blueprint, that some positions that they're really needing. I mean, they went all the way to Illinois to get Sebastian Cheeks and stuff. So, I could see that kind of wavering a little bit, but the bread and butter is that DC to Atlanta basically, and like I said, with Warren and Chizik in there, I think they're going to really start mining Georgia a lot more, because everybody can't go play for Kirby Smart now since he's won the title. So,
Mac likes to say that outside the footprint, they go out there and get the great ones. I just think maybe there's a lot of great ones in Alabama right now. Alabama, like we mentioned, Phoenix City, there's some big time studs in Phoenix City, and there's some other pockets in the northern half of Florida that they're the great ones there. So why not go there and get those guys? Brandon, what do you think about the footprint? Washington, D.C. to Atlanta, and then sort of fudging a little bit into northern Florida, fudging over to Alabama, which really the Alabama line is only about, an hour and 10 minutes from Atlanta, hour and 15 minutes?
Yeah. Well, I think the footprint is the basic blueprint that you need to build the program. You have to start in the footprint, DC to Atlanta. And now you're seeing what happens once you start to you start to dominate part of the footprint. They're like, okay, we got North Carolina on lock. We did really well in Virginia. So now we can go a little further out. We can take chances on some other kids that are a little further away. The North Carolina brand is, I used to live in let me tell you about the North Carolina brand. I used to live in South Korea. And if I walked outside with the North Carolina Tar Heels shirt on, people will come up to me and say, "Oh, Michael Jordan." Like it's a worldwide thing. So if Mac Brown,
they didn't say Lawrence Taylor?
Nah.
Because this is football.
So yeah, so like the brand is a worldwide thing. So Mac Brown has the momentum going on the recruiting cycle, and now you see he's starting to expand his footprint. He's starting to expand a little bit more. It's exactly what Clemson did. And now then eventually you're a nationwide program. You can go anywhere in the country to get the kids you want.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that if you mine the 757 in the Tidewater area in Virginia, Charlotte, and Atlanta, and you go to DC to get some kids and maybe a couple in Florida, you have more than enough talent to win a national championship, to compete for a national championship. That's the mission. Some people may laugh and say, you're never going to win a national title at North Carolina. Some people may laugh and say, how can he talk national title? He's 21-17 in 3 years. Well, remember what I said about taking a couple steps back to take a lot more forward. I think that they may well be in the middle of that process. I'm not going to project too far ahead for this coming season in the next couple of years with what Mac may do, but I do think that's the mission, and I think that that's how they're going about it. They're going about it to achieve that mission. So mind the crap out of the 757, mind the crap out of the Queen City, mind the crap out of Atlanta, and go ahead and get some kids from DC and Florida and Alabama and go up to Evanston, Illinois and Northwestern's backyard and get yourself a linebacker who's a great student and have him come all the way to Chapel Hill and play football. That's a pretty good approach in my opinion. Deana?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the offer things today. They've got kid from Minnesota, Iowa, Jaden Wayne from Washington State, who's I believe he's top 10. Wanted to come to one of the junior days on his own dime, and really interested in North Carolina. So like Brandon said, the brand is worldwide. I mean, and a lot of these kids that are in military, I found out in covering them that, that's how they started pulling for North Carolina, is because they always saw Carolina play basketball on TV, and that's that color with that baby blue. You know what that school is and everything. So brand recognition is huge, and let's face it, when you got your own brand like the Jordan brand and the sneakers, we all know about Mac and his shoes, and the players get all this gear and stuff. It's a big perk for North Carolina.
They got a lot of swag, a lot of stuff, and the uniforms are pretty. The kids talk about the uniform, and I'm not a big believer that uniforms are ever get someone a kid. That's why I think teams that don't have black in their color scheme that wear black uniforms is ridiculous, because you're never going to get a kid for that way. Otherwise, Southern Miss would be a power, and they're not. Maryland would be a power, and they wear ridiculous uniforms, and they're not. So that doesn't, but I do think though, when you have an iconic look, when you turn on the TV and that's North Carolina, you don't have to look to see what it says. I think that helps, which is why they should not wear the navy blue pants, the white helmet, and the white shirt with the dark numbers, especially in a rivalry game. I think that's ridiculously ludicrous, but that's just my take. They should go straight with who they are, and they should milk that as much as they can. One last thing, I'll tell you, Deana, this. Brandon and I we're taping this Wednesday night. Brandon and I were at Clemson last night at Little John Coliseum, and we were talking a little bit about football. Football sort of came up. I don't know how it came up, Brandon, but Brandon's like, I'm looking forward to going to some spring practices. How many spring practices do you think we're going to get and be able to see? Well, we don't know the answer to that question yet, but I could sense that Brandon's really excited about the opportunity of seeing the fourth team, the beginning stages of the fourth team in the Mac Brown era, and have an earlier spring practice. A lot of Carolina football fans are like, you know what? I'm cutting the cord for a while. I don't want to think about it. Last year was such a disappointment. You guys are in the media. You see things a little bit differently. So how excited are you for spring practice coming up here in a few weeks? And we will do another podcast right before spring practice starts, but we're just a few weeks away, guys. It's when you wake up tomorrow, it's going to be February 10th. There'll only be 2.5 weeks left in the month. So March is almost here. The ACC tournament's 3.5 weeks away. That stuff's almost here. So how excited are you guys to see the next version of Carolina football?
Well, I got on Twitter, I believe yesterday, and Appalachian has started their spring practice.
Brandon, we were talking about that last night.
They had snow on the ground, so I was like, man, it's going to be here really soon, and a lot of question marks, but I'm excited to see this version of them. I mean, they got a lot of good key parts coming back, and it's time for some new kids to step into very prominent roles, and I'm looking forward to seeing those battles happen.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the battle, like Deana just said, about all of the position battles that are going to be going on, because most people are focusing on the quarterback, which is obviously going to be a big story with the quarterback battle, but then you got to look at the running backs. There's going to be a battle there. There's going to be a battle for the third wide. There's going to be a battle for the kicking spot, where they lost the kicker. There's going to be a lot of battles, and I'm a big fan of competition, so I'm really excited for spring practice to start. Can't wait.
One thing I'm really, and this is, I know they're freshmen, but how many views do you think would we get if we had a ISO of Zach Rice and Travis Shaw going one-on-one?
Not if, but we'll at least get ISOs. We'll get ISOs of them at practice, that's for sure.
Because both of those guys are great competitors, and they want to go against the best. And so I'm looking forward to that too.
But people also need to temper their excitement and more their expectations, not their excitement, their expectations, because true freshmen in the trenches really get on the field. And if they do, they don't get on much. Travis, defensive lineman, get on a little bit more on offensive lineman because you can rotate on the defensive line without screwing up chemistry and stuff more than you can on the offensive line. You got to be pretty married to who you have on the offensive line, other than a series here and there. So we're not even going to get into whether or not we think either one of them will get on the field. But the people who are expecting Zach to start and expecting the Travis to start, you might want to scale back on those expectations because that usually doesn't happen.
Yeah. It takes a special offensive lineman to get on the field as a true freshman. And Zach Rice is a special offensive lineman, but it's not a fair expectation to set for a true freshman coming in out of high school. It's not fair.
Exactly. Guys, spring practice is 3 weeks away. We'll do another one of these before we get into it. But I do think the last month has been pretty big for Carolina. There have been some changes in the approach. And I think and there have been some additions. I think that the program has gotten better by getting Vohasek back, by bringing in Spencer Rolland. I think the Chizik and Warren edition and the Suddes edition are all positive things. And I do think that room in the Keenan Football Center where the staff has a meeting is better now than it was 2 months ago. I think that locker room inside the Keenan Football Center is more talented and has a nice mix, more so than it did 2 months ago. So I think Carolina football is positioning itself to maybe begin to achieve part of that stated mission. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think they're taking the right steps. Getting a guy like Gene Chizik to come back, a national championship coach, 2 national championships, one as a coordinator. Now you have more credibility along in the coaching staff. You don't have to micromanage, or Matt Brown doesn't have to micromanage things as much. And I think overall it's going to help the program out. I think, overall it's going to help the program.
Or not so much micromanage, but I just think that, again, I go back to the simplicity of it. I don't think the fear factor of like, oh my God, when's this defense going to blow up and then not recover for 2.5 hours? I'm not so sure that'll be a part of next season, but we don't know. You never know. Dana, I have to throw that little hook in there, right, to make it seem like I don't want people to think we're just lathering the programs. I think it was a good month.
Well,
but they have a long way to go. Go ahead.
It's a big unknown because of how they finished the season. I do think it's big of them starting the season, the week 0. They got a home game with Florida A&M, which is, when they're going to be breaking in a new quarterback, a lot of new kids possibly getting their first action, and then going playing Appalachian, Georgia State. So there's 3 games that they can find a lot about themselves before they get into that meat of that schedule, which that stretch there is going to be pretty tough on them. But like a lot of fans, I know a lot of them they got so excited this past season and to finish 6 and 7. It was almost like when they lost at Virginia Tech, the balloon got busted right out of the gate. So, starting with a Florida and A&M will be a lot better and exciting. I'm anxious to see the Tar Heels in the spring practice, spring game, and to see them this year because it's like I said, sometimes it's exciting because it's a lot of unknowns.
That's
So
one of my favorite things. I like to craft in my mind, certain ways I approach a season. And the number one thing, as you guys know, is that I judge a team based on their stated mission, as long as it's realistic. If I covered Elon basketball and they said, well, our stated mission is to go to the Final Four, I'm not going to judge them on that because it's not realistic. I think North Carolina's stated mission is fairly realistic, and you have a Hall of Famer stating that mission, so I will judge them accordingly. I think this year, part of that is also part of the excitement, and what drives me as a journalist is judging a team on their stated mission is also the unknown factor. I think that that's really cool. And we'll talk a lot about the schedule, obviously, when we get a lot closer, but they better hope in a way that App State's really good and can push them some so they can learn a little something, because they're going to have 3 games at open week and got Notre Dame roaring in there. They better learn a few things that are tested on that team before the Irish come in. I think.
Well, I'm telling you,
I think they would be better off playing a game in week 4. It's unfortunate for them that the league didn't give them one, but I think they would have had to play on the road based on the way the schedule all works out. They didn't want to play 3 straight road games. The league wouldn't want to do that to them. So it is what it is, but it'll be very interesting to see how things unfold. And when they make a decision on who is going to be the starting quarterback, we have our ideas. We're not going to dive into it now. Maybe we'll do that on the next one. You had one more thing to say, Deana?
Yeah, I was like, that bunch in Boone, you don't have to worry about the atmosphere up there. I mean, I've been up there when we covered Appalachian, a lot of great fan base. It's almost like a mini. I'm not going to. I hate to use this, but they're stadium-wise.
Don't say it.
Stadium-wise, it gets rowdy in there. I'll just say.
When people say, I hate to say it or I shouldn't say it, then you just shouldn't say it, right? But that was okay.
I mean, they're looking forward to
that one.
They're looking forward to.
Brandon, have you ever been to Boone?
Never been to Boone, no.
I've never been there either. I've been to a million places, but I have not been there. So you were with me at my first time at College of Charleston for basketball. And that was kind of cool. And I imagine you'll be with me when I go up to Boone to App State for a game for the first time too. And it's renovated stadium. So they finished all that stuff in time for the Tar Heels to make their trip up there. That will be a lot of fun. Guys, always enjoy talking Carolina football, ACC football, college football in general. Real quickly, Super Bowl picks. I know that this is not totally off topic, but people love to give Super Bowl picks this time of year. So Miss King, let's start with you.
Okay. Obviously, my team didn't make it, so I'm going on. Dre Bry's going to get mad at me, but I'm going to go with the Bengals because they got more North Carolina boys on the team. Because I run NC Preps, I follow the high school kids. You got DJ Reader out of Greensboro, you got BJ Hill out of Oakboro, and a couple more that slipped my mind. I think there's like 4 kids from North Carolina that's on that Bengals roster. So I'm going to go with the Bengals by a touchdown.
Why would Dre Bly not like?
Because he's Rams.
But he played. How many teams did he play for?
Well, he
can't claim.
You look on Twitter.
He played for the 49ers too. Didn't he play for the 49ers?
And the Lions. But
but if you play for the 49ers and the Rams,
he's got that ring both. With the Rams, though.
You cannot claim both if you play for the 49ers and the Rams. I know that much. I grew up a Rams fan. When I was a little kid, I used to cry when they lost. Now I don't. Once they left LA, I cut ties with the Rams. I don't.
He's got that ring, Super Bowl ring for the Rams, so that's true. That's probably why.
All right, Brandon, what you got?
Well, Deana picked the Bengals because of the kids from North Carolina, but I'm gonna pick the Bengals because of the one kid from Ohio, Mr. Joe Burrow. And I think he's going to be the best player on the field. And I think when your quarterback's the best player on the field, you have a really good chance of winning. So I'm going Bengals. I'm going to make it it's going to be a one-score game. I'm going to say like 34-27, something like that.
I didn't really watch much NFL this year because you guys know what I do every Sunday after football games. I'm grinding for about 12 hours.
We can really get Andrew.
Sunday nights, and I've got to do my daughter's stuff. So
Andrew would probably think Pat Hayden was still playing for the Rams. Like he likes to joke with chat.
The old guys listening will appreciate me mentioning John Hale and James Harris or Vince Ferragamo. Vince Ferragamo led them to a Super Bowl.
Lawrence McCutcheon will score a few touchdowns.
Here we go. There it is. Lawrence McCutcheon autograph picture. My sister gave that to me for Christmas one year. So I did not like the original Brian Song movie when I first saw it a couple of times because they kept showing Gale Sayers running for touchdowns against the Rams. I started crying. Well, I was like this big, man. But when they left LA and went to St. Louis, I just went whoosh. And then once I started covering the Panthers, I had like no link to anybody. I did that with hockey. I grew up a Capitals fan. And then when I started covering the Hurricanes, like, well, they play in the same division as the Capitals, so got to cut them loose. And they won the Cup a few years ago, and I was happy for my buddies from back home, but it didn't really hit me that much. So that's what happens when you get into this profession. You kind of lose all of your allegiances. That's why I can still root for those guys. I'm trying to point to it on my finger. Those guys right there, because I don't cover. I covered baseball for 17 games and realized I can't do this. I have to still root for these guys. So that's what it is. So there's the long and short of it right there, guys. So, my pick, I'm going to go with Joe Burrow as well. The guy's unbelievable. Now that Brady's retired, I think you're looking at the heir apparent, the guy who's going to do unbelievable things the next 15 years.
Agreed.
Well, if Brandon agrees with me, I feel a lot better about things now. All right, guys, appreciate it. Brandon, you've seen too much of me the last 24 hours. I'm going to give you a break now.
Yeah, I'll see you Saturday.
You'll see Saturday at Florida State game, and then you're at the Pitt game too. Deana, thanks, my friend. All right, for Deana, for Brandon, this is AJ. Make sure you guys go to THI, man, TarHeelIllustrated.com. It's just $8.33 a month. You can be an insider too. It's like the price of 2 gallons of gas now, the way gas is going. So go ahead and become a THI member and hang out with us on the boards. We really get into a lot of stuff. Thanks for stopping by.